Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't see you there. I was just enjoying my cereal, getting some ideas for my information writing book, ways I could make it even better. Today's lesson is all about making your writing better as well. So let's get to it. I want to talk to you first about revision. What is it? Well, it's part of this thing that we call the writing process. Whenever you're writing anything, information book, narrative story, historical research paper, whatever it is, it doesn't even matter. It goes through a process. You start by generating ideas, then you rehearse, you try some out. Maybe that also involves a little bit of planning. Then you flash draft, you just write it all out. You don't worry too much about how it looks or how it sounds, just get the ideas on the page. And then you do something called revise. You revise your piece before you edit. Really, take a look at the chart. Whenever we go into a revision lesson, I always worry that sometimes my students are thinking about editing. Editing is also very important. It comes next. So if editing is the last thing we do, and that's really about the spelling, punctuation, paragraphs, making sure that everything looks and sounds perfect, what is revision anyway? Well, take a look at that word, revise, or think about the word revision. You use that part of a word for when you're going to do something again, like redo or rewind or retry or rebound. Vise or vision is what? Seeing. So revision is actually when you see something again. It's not when you go in and you change a few words. It's not when you go in and check for spelling or grammar. That's editing. Revision is when you look at a part, maybe even a whole page or paragraph or chapter, and you think, what could I do to make this better? How can I put on lenses, see it differently, so that my readers really understand what I'm trying to teach them? That's what revision is. And right now, I'm going to offer you a few ways that you might jump back into your revision work as well. Let's do it. So, one way you might revise right now is by taking a chapter away. Sometimes writers find that they have tons to say about most chapters and almost nothing to say about one. When that happens, sometimes you have to just say goodbye. Adios, see you later to that chapter. Maybe it's full of interesting things, and maybe you'll find other places for that later on. But if you are having trouble writing it at this point, or if you feel like it's just not really up to par or as meaningful or powerful as the other chapters, it might just be time to cut it. For instance, when in the beginning of my writing process, when I was just starting to draft, I realized that I had a lot to say about a lot of stuff about cereal, but not so much to say about, for instance, cereal games. I was thinking about the back of cereal boxes and how there's always those fun games. And then I thought, I don't know if I could write a whole chapter about that. I'm just thinking about like maybe a few examples I could give, like the Frosted Flakes games, the Wheaties challenges, and that's kind of it. It's just like the examples. The other ones, I feel like I'm really teaching valuable information, not just giving examples. I'm giving a variety. Cereal games, I was just giving examples. So I cut it. Another thing you might do is you might try to combine chapters. Maybe I really don't want to part with that example. So maybe it's not that I cut it forever. I just maybe find another place for games. For instance, maybe in my chapter about fun crafts you can make with cereal, I add on just like a little thing about games and how you can use cereal to play games. I also was thinking about how in my book, I have a whole chapter about cereal warnings and another chapter about healthy or not healthy cereals. So I was thinking when I was reading it over to myself that maybe those chapters need to actually just be one chapter. Healthy and not healthy and cereal warnings both handle sugar They both talk about calories. They both talk about energy. Feels like I'm just kind of saying the same thing twice. If you have that, you might also try to combine chapters too, and just see if you can go back and take parts of it and make one really powerful chapter instead of two kind of repetitive, not so powerful chapters. So that's another thing you could try. The third thing you could try is to go back into one of your chapters that feels long, that you feel like maybe is going a little off topic, and see if you can break it apart. I'm going to show you how I did this one, because this one I think is really, really important for us in 6th grade. Okay, so one of the chapters I just wrote, cereal warnings, right? I took my healthy, not healthy, made it one beautiful chapter about cereal warnings. And I was writing and it got really long. How long it is. Okay, so I'm just gonna look it over and scan it and see if there's something that I could, if there's a place where I'm maybe going to another subtopic, maybe I need to break it apart. Let's see. Cereal is fun. Okay, so the warning, like kind of like intro that needs to stay there, kind of talks about the sugar and the nutrition. Healthy, not healthy, that has to stay. That moved from the other chapter. Marketing techniques, so things to be on the lookout for. I gave people some tips, like what to do, how to avoid misleading information. And then I gave a story about a time where I fell for one of these marketing schemes. So you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking that maybe this story, because I really like this story, I don't want to just cut it. Maybe it gets its own chapter, because it's about marketing, but it's also about like taste tests, because sometimes people fall for fancier, really expensive cereal when it really has the same stuff as everything else, or they fall for the decorations or the logo. You know what I'm thinking? I could have actually a whole section about taste tests and like how sometimes like some cereals taste similar and some cereals taste super like extremely different, but they do the same things. That could even be like a little bit of a compare and contrast. Okay, so now I'm thinking that these 3 paragraphs will stay and this one becomes a paragraph in a new chapter about taste tests. Okay, so that's another thing you could do. You could go into a long chapter and see if you can break it apart. See if it becomes almost like 2 small chapters in one. And then a fourth thing you could do, like for instance, maybe you chose to break it apart and you're like, okay, I have this like single paragraph. Now what do I do? Think about structure. Maybe I could use this as an opportunity to do some compare and contrast work, because a lot of my other chapters so far are like boxes and bullets. So maybe this is a good chance for me to really push myself to not only cover a really kind of like specialized piece of information about cereal, about like taste tests and how some taste similar and some taste different, and how sometimes companies are trying to trick you. Maybe I could also like let myself compare and contrast what different brands do. So the fourth way might be to consider structure. Maybe if you're making a new chapter like I am, or maybe you're just looking over your chapters and you're thinking, have I used a variety of structure in addition to a variety of information? If I'm only using boxes and bullets, maybe it's time for me to go back into a chapter I've already written and just see if I can tweak it and write it in a different way. Revise, re-see it. Maybe something that was boxes and bullets becomes cause and effect. So you have 4 different ways that you could try to revise. Right now, I want you to look at your own work, read it over, or go back to the parts that you are feeling are not so strong. And then try one of these or try maybe more than one. Today, you are revising your work. You're trying to make it the best that it can be. So don't just go for editing. That's not going to get you all the way through the process. Really take the time to see it in a different light and make it better for your readers by trying out one or more than one of my recommended strategies. I can't wait to hear which ones you try. All right, back to my cereal. See you later.